Ladies and gentlemen, sexual influence on the mind is a powerful and often underestimated force that shapes our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in profound ways. It is not merely a physical or biological experience. It reaches deep into the psyche, influencing how we perceive ourselves, others, and the world around us. This influence is subtle yet pervasive, weaving its way through our decisions and often dictating our mental landscape without us even realizing it. From the earliest stages of life, the mind is wired to respond to sexual energy. It is tied to our fundamental need for connection, acceptance, and intimacy. These deep-rooted desires stir the mind, activating circuits that govern pleasure, reward, and sometimes compulsion. Sexual thoughts and impulses can become dominant forces, shaping moods, self-esteem, and even our sense of identity. When left unchecked, this influence can lead to distraction, confusion, and a loss of control over one's own mental and emotional well-being. Many people experience this influence as a kind of inner turmoil, a battle between desire and reason. The mind becomes a battlefield where fleeting pleasure competes with long-term values and goals. This tension can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, or frustration, especially when behaviors influenced by sexual impulses conflict with personal beliefs or faith. But within this struggle lies a path to healing and growth. Recognizing the power of sexual influence on the mind is the first step toward reclaiming control. It invites us to be honest about the ways in which our thoughts are shaped by desires and urges. Rather than suppressing or denying these feelings, we can bring them into the light of awareness. This awareness allows for deliberate choice rather than unconscious reaction. Faith plays a transformative role here. It offers a foundation of hope and strength that empowers individuals to break from the cycles of temptation and compulsion. By speaking the word, "Lord, heal my mind," one opens the door to divine healing, a healing that restores clarity, peace, and self-mastery. This healing is not about denying sexuality, but about aligning it with higher purpose and self-respect. The real-life stories abound of those who have felt controlled by sexual impulses, only to find liberation through faith and intentional action. Consider the young woman who struggled with obsessive thoughts that clouded her mind and disrupted her peace. Through prayer, community support, and a commitment to personal growth, she found the strength to redirect her focus and rebuild her mental clarity. She learned that the mind, when nourished with faith and purpose, can rise above the sway of desire. Another example is the man whose life was derailed by addictive behaviors tied to sexual thoughts. His journey toward healing began with a simple yet powerful act, surrendering to a higher power and asking for help. With each day, his mind grew stronger, his impulses less controlling, until he reclaimed his life and found a new sense of freedom. Understanding sexual influence on the mind also invites us to cultivate habits that support mental and spiritual health. This includes mindfulness, prayer, a community connection, and honest conversations about the struggles we face. It means developing resilience and patience with ourselves as we navigate this complex terrain. The power to transform this influence lies within each individual. It calls for courage, to face difficult truths, to seek help, and to commit to growth. It asks us to trust that the mind can be renewed, that healing is possible, and that our true identity is not defined by fleeting impulses, but by our capacity to choose love, faith, and wholeness. Sexual influence on the mind is real and significant, but it need not be a prison. It can be a catalyst for profound healing and transformation. When embraced with faith and resilience, this force becomes an invitation to deepen our understanding of ourselves, to grow spiritually, and to live a life marked by freedom, purpose, and divine peace. The relationship between mind control and desire, especially sexual desire, is a complex and powerful dynamic that deeply affects our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Desire, in its rawest form, can become a master over the mind, subtly steering decisions and behaviors in ways that often go unnoticed until the consequences become clear. When it comes to sexual desire, this influence is particularly potent, capable of hijacking our mental processes and shaping our reality without our conscious awareness. At the heart of this phenomenon is the fact that desire activates certain parts of the brain tied to reward, pleasure, and motivation. These neural pathways light up with intensity whenever sexual thoughts or stimuli arise, releasing chemicals like dopamine that create feelings of pleasure and reinforce the desire to repeat the experience. Over time, This creates a feedback loop where the mind is increasingly drawn towards satisfying these impulses, sometimes at the expense of other important aspects of life. This mind control through desire can manifest as intrusive thoughts, compulsive behaviors, or emotional upheaval. It often leaves people feeling trapped in a cycle, knowing they want to act differently but feeling powerless to resist. The mind becomes a battlefield, with desire acting as a powerful general commanding the troops, often drowning out reason, faith, and long-term goals. Yet, within this challenge lies the opportunity for profound transformation. Recognizing that desire can control the mind is the first step toward reclaiming freedom. It requires a courageous honesty to admit when desire has become overwhelming or destructive. This admission is not a sign of weakness but a powerful act of self-awareness that opens the door to healing. Faith is a vital force in this process. It reminds us that our minds are not simply passive recipients of impulses but sacred spaces where divine healing can take place. When we call out, "Speak the word, your Lord," we invite a higher power to intervene, to break the chains of compulsive desire and restore peace and balance. This divine healing is immediate and transformative, capable of renewing the mind and reinforcing resilience. Real-life experiences demonstrate how faith and intentionality can dismantle the grip of desire over the mind. For instance, a young man overwhelmed by addictive sexual thought his breakthrough when he surrendered control and sought spiritual guidance. Through prayer, a community support, and daily commitment, his mind was gradually freed from the bondage of desire, allowing him to think clearly, make healthier choices, and grow in personal strength. Similarly, a woman caught in a cycle of fleeting relationships recognized the controlling nature of her desires and turned to faith for renewal. She learned to see her worth beyond physical attraction and discovered that true fulfillment comes from aligning her desires with her spiritual values. This shift empowered her mind, giving her clarity and peace she never thought possible. Your mind controlled by desire is not an inevitable fate, but a condition that can be healed and transformed. It calls for resilience, the ability to face temptation without surrender, to forgive oneself for past mistakes, and to persevere in the journey toward wholeness. It also requires practical strategies, cultivating mindfulness, seeking accountability, and nurturing spiritual disciplines that fortify the mind against intrusive desires. Ultimately, the mind is a sacred battleground where the forces of desire and faith vie for control. When desire dominates, it clouds judgment and leads to unrest. When faith takes hold, it brings clarity, peace, and strength. The call to action is clear: to invite divine healing, to stand firm in resilience, and to reclaim the mind as a place of freedom and purpose. You have the power to transform this dynamic. You can choose faith over impulse, purpose over passing pleasure, and healing over captivity. Speak the word, whether aloud or in your heart, and watch as your mind is renewed, your desires aligned, and your life transformed by the instant power of divine healing. Overcoming sexual temptation is a journey that many face, yet few openly discuss with the depth and honesty it deserves. The truth is that sexual temptation holds a unique power over the mind. Its influence subtle yet overwhelming, capable of steering thoughts, emotions, and actions in ways that can feel impossible to resist. Recognizing this power is the first step toward breaking free from its grip and reclaiming control over one's life. Temptation often begins as a whisper, a fleeting thought or feeling that seems harmless at first, but if left unchecked, it can grow into a persistent force, clouding judgment and distorting priorities. It preys on our vulnerabilities, loneliness, stress, insecurity, using these openings to capture the mind and guide behavior toward immediate gratification rather than long-term well-being. Yet, overcoming sexual temptation is not about suppression or denial, it is about transformation. It requires a shift in how we understand ourselves, our desires, and our faith. It invites us to see temptation not as a defeat, but as an opportunity for spiritual and personal growth, a call to lean into resilience and divine healing. Faith becomes the cornerstone of this transformation. When you call out, "Speak the word, Lord," you invoke an immediate, powerful force that can heal the mind and spirit. This divine healing brings clarity where there was confusion, strength where there was weakness, and peace where there was turmoil. It is a healing that does not condemn but empowers, allowing you to walk the path of freedom with confidence and hope. Real-life stories illustrate the power of faith in overcoming temptation. Take the example of a man caught in a cycle of compulsive behaviors, feeling powerless to break free. His breakthrough came when he surrendered control and embraced a higher power. With prayer, community support, and deliberate action, he found his mind renewed, his desires realigned, and his spirit strengthened. This journey was not easy, but it was marked by grace and resilience. Similarly, a woman struggling with recurring temptation found healing through faith and honest self-reflection. She learned to identify the triggers that led her astray and replaced destructors with positive habits, prayer, meditation, and supportive relationships. Over time, she transformed her inner landscape, discovering that true freedom comes not from avoidance but from inner renewal. Overcoming sexual temptation also involves practical steps. It requires mindfulness, being aware of when temptation arises and choosing how to respond. It means setting boundaries that protect your mind and heart, whether that involves avoiding certain environments, limiting exposure to triggering content, or cultivating healthy relationships that support your values. Accountability is another crucial element. Sharing struggles with trusted mentors or faith communities creates a network of support that strengthens resolve. Above all, resilience is key. Temptation may come again and again, but each time you choose faith and healing, you build mental and spiritual strength. You learn that setbacks are not failures, but stepping stones toward growth. You cultivate patience with yourself and trust in the ongoing process of renewal. Remember, overcoming sexual temptation is a journey, not a single event. It is a daily commitment to speak the word, to invite divine healing, and to live with intention and faith. The mind, once controlled by fleeting desires, can become a sanctuary of peace, purpose, and clarity. You are not alone on this path. There is power available to you right now. The instant power of divine healing that can transform temptation into triumph. Choose faith over fear, resilience over resignation, and watch as your mind and life are renewed beyond what you thought possible. Faith and self-control are two intertwined forces that hold remarkable power in the battle to reclaim the mind from the sway of sexual influence. When sex controls your mind more than you think, it is faith that lights the path forward and self-control that walks the road toward freedom. Together, they form the foundation of a life marked by resilience, clarity, and divine healing. Sexual desire is natural and deeply woven into our human experience. Yet, when it exerts unchecked influence over the mind, it can cloud judgment, fuel compulsive behavior, and create inner turmoil. The mind becomes a battleground where fleeting pleasure challenges long-term well-being, where impulsive urges threaten to drown out the quiet voice of faith and reason. Without intervention, this imbalance can erode self-esteem, damage relationships, and leave the spirit longing for peace. This is where faith enters as a transformative force. Faith is not just belief. It is trust in something greater than ourselves, a source of strength that empowers us to face challenges beyond our own strength. When you say, "Speak the word, Lord," you are calling on this divine power to heal the mind, to restore order where chaos reigned, and to anchor you in hope when temptation rises like a storm. Self-control is the active expression of faith. It is the daily practice of choosing what aligns with your values over what offers momentary gratification. This discipline is not a burdensome restriction, but a courageous declaration of your worth and purpose. Self-control is the muscle that grows stronger with each decision to resist temptation, to redirect your thoughts, and to nurture your spirit. Real stories of transformation reveal the dynamic between faith and self-control. Imagine a man whose mind was often captive to sexual thoughts that left him feeling powerless. His breakthrough began when he embraced faith, not as a distant concept, but as a living presence guiding him. Each time temptation arose, he leaned into prayer and meditation, calling out for healing and strength. Over time, his self-control strengthened, not through sheer willpower alone, but through the sustaining power of faith that lifted him above the struggle. A woman facing similar battles found peace by integrating faith and self-control into her daily life. She developed rituals that grounded her: morning prayers, moments of reflection, and accountability within her community. These practices became the armor shielding her mind from the overpowering influence of desire. Her faith deepened, and with it, her capacity for self-control flourished. She learned that every act of restraint was a victory not just over temptation, but for her soul's freedom. Faith and self-control are not about perfection but persistence. They invite you to see setbacks as opportunities to grow stronger, to forgive yourself with grace, and to keep moving forward with hope. They remind you that the mind is not a playground for uncontrollable urges, but a sacred space where divine healing can flourish. Practical steps support this journey. Cultivating awareness helps you recognize triggers and patterns that weaken self-control. Engaging in spiritual practices, prayer, meditation, a scripture study reinforces faith and provides peace. Seeking community and mentorship offers encouragement and accountability. Together, these create a holistic approach that nurtures mind, body, and spirit. The call to action is clear: nurture your faith, strengthen your self-control, and reclaim your mind from the deceptive power of sexual influence. Speak the word, out loud or within your heart, and invite divine healing to renew your thoughts and desires. Know that you are not alone, that your struggle is part of a larger human experience, and that victory is possible through faith-driven resilience. You hold the key to freedom. With faith as your guide and self-control as your tool, you can overcome the subtle chains of desire and walk boldly into a life of clarity, peace, and divine purpose. Divine healing from sexual struggles is a powerful and transformative experience that offers hope and restoration to those who feel trapped by the overwhelming influence of sexual desires on their minds. When sex controls your mind more than you think, it can lead to feelings of shame, guilt, and helplessness, making it difficult to envision a path toward freedom. Yet, and through divine healing, there is a way to break these chains and reclaim not only the mind but the entire spirit. Sexual struggles often go beyond mere physical temptation. They invade the mental and emotional realms, causing inner conflict and distress. The mind becomes a battleground where urges clash with values, where the desire for fleeting pleasure threatens to overshadow the deeper longing for peace, purpose, and connection. This struggle can feel isolating, as many suffer silently, believing that their experiences are personal failures rather than universal human challenges. Divine healing invites a radical shift, a healing that does not depend solely on human effort or willpower, but on the transformative power of faith. It begins with the simple yet profound act of calling out, "Speak the word, Lord." This cry opens the door to an instant power that can restore balance, cleanse the mind, and renew the spirit. This healing is immediate and ongoing, offering a peace that surpasses understanding and a strength that overcomes weakness. The process of divine healing involves acknowledging the struggle honestly and surrendering it to a higher power. It is an act of humility and faith, recognizing that true freedom comes not from fighting alone, but from allowing divine grace to work within. This surrender does not mean giving up, rather. It is the beginning of a journey toward restoration and wholeness. Stories of transformation highlight the profound impact of divine healing on sexual struggles. For example, consider a man whose mind was dominated by compulsive thoughts and behaviors, leaving him feeling defeated and disconnected. When he turned to faith and spoke the word, "Lord, heal me," he experienced a profound shift. The grip of temptation loosened, clarity returned, and with support from his faith community, he rebuilt his life on a foundation of healing and purpose. Similarly, a woman burdened by shame and repeated setbacks found hope through divine healing. Her journey was marked by moments of deep prayer, honest reflection, and the willingness to accept grace. Each step brought renewed strength, helping her to replace destructive patterns with habits that nurtured her mind and spirit. Over time, she discovered that healing was not a distant goal but a present reality, an ongoing gift of faith. Divine healing from sexual struggles also calls for practical engagement. It encourages cultivating spiritual disciplines such as prayer, meditation on sacred texts, and participation in supportive communities. These practices create an environment where healing can flourish, helping to reinforce the mind's renewal and guard against relapse. Moreover, divine healing fosters resilience. It teaches that setbacks are not failures but opportunities to deepen faith and grow stronger. It encourages self-compassion and perseverance, reminding us that healing is a process, not an instant fix. This resilience empowers individuals to face future temptations with courage and confidence, knowing they are supported by a power greater than themselves. The promise of divine healing is that no struggle is too great and no mind too lost to be restored. It offers a pathway to peace and freedom, inviting you to take hold of the instant power that faith provides. When sex controls your mind more than you think, a divine healing shines as a beacon of hope, reminder that you can be made whole, your mind renewed, and your spirit set free. You are called to speak the word, and to invite this healing and to embrace the journey of transformation. Through faith, resilience, and divine grace, your mind can be liberated from the control of sexual struggles, opening the door to a life filled with peace, clarity, and divine purpose. Sexuality profoundly influences the human mind, often in ways that are subtle yet deeply impactful. When considering the idea that sex controls your mind more than you think, it becomes clear that sexuality is not merely a physical act or biological impulse. It shapes our psychological landscape, affecting emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. The psychological effects of sexuality are multifaceted, touching on self-identity, relationships, emotional well-being, and mental health. At its core, sexuality is tied to some of the most fundamental human needs: connection, intimacy, acceptance, and validation. These needs, when unmet or distorted, can create powerful psychological effects. Sexual thoughts and desires activate complex neural pathways in the brain that influence mood and motivation. The release of neurotransmitters such as dopamine during sexual arousal and activity creates sensations of pleasure and reward, which can reinforce behaviors and form strong mental associations. This neurological pattern can make sexual thoughts pervasive and difficult to control, often dominating mental space beyond conscious intention. One significant psychological effect of sexuality is its impact on self-esteem and self-image. Healthy sexuality can enhance a person's confidence and sense of worth, fostering positive self-regard and emotional balance. However, when sexuality becomes a source of conflict, through shame, guilt, or compulsive behavior, it can severely damage self-esteem. Individuals may struggle with feelings of inadequacy or unworthiness, which in turn affect their mental health and relationships. Sexuality also plays a critical role in shaping interpersonal relationships. The psychological effects extend beyond the individual to how they connect with others. Sexual attraction and intimacy can foster closeness and bonding, strengthening emotional ties. Conversely, the sexual struggles such as addiction or compulsive behaviors can create distance, mistrust, and emotional pain. The mind's entanglement with sexual desire can complicate communication, trust, and vulnerability in relationships, sometimes leading to cycles of hurt and misunderstanding. The mental health implications of sexuality are profound. Unresolved sex struggles can contribute to anxiety, depression, and emotional instability. The internal conflict between desire and restraint may cause significant psychological stress. This tension creates a feedback loop where stress intensifies sexual urges, and sexual urges increase stress, trapping the mind in a cycle of turmoil. Without intervention, this cycle can erode mental well-being and undermine resilience. Yet, within this challenge lies the potential for healing and growth. Recognizing the psychological effects of sexuality allows individuals to approach their struggles with compassion and insight rather than judgment. Faith and spiritual practice can offer profound healing, transforming the mind's relationship with sexuality. When one calls out, "Speak the word, your Lord," it is an invocation of divine healing power, an instant restoration that renews clarity, peace, and strength. This healing brings hope that the mind need not be captive to desires, but can be restored to balance and wholeness. Real-life stories demonstrate the transformative power of divine healing in addressing the psychological effects of sexuality. Consider a young woman who battled with compulsive sexual thoughts that overwhelmed her mind and damaged her self-esteem. Through faith, prayer, and community support, she found the strength to renew her mind and rebuild her self-worth. Her healing journey transformed her mental and emotional landscape, allowing her to form healthier relationships and embrace a hopeful future. Similarly, a man caught in addiction experienced profound psychological distress and isolation. His breakthrough came when he invited divine healing into his life, surrendering his struggles and opening himself to spiritual renewal. This process restored his mental balance and gave him resilience to face temptation with faith and confidence. Understanding the psychological effects of sexuality underscores the importance of intentional healing and self-care. Practices such as mindfulness, prayer, counseling, and community engagement provide tools to nurture mental health and spiritual well-being. They help individuals to break free from the unconscious control of sexual impulses and to live with purpose and clarity. Sex controls your mind more than you think, but it does not have to dominate your life. With faith, resilience, and divine healing, the psychological effects of sexuality can be transformed from sources of pain into opportunities for growth. The mind can be renewed, peace restored, and a deeper understanding of self and relationships attained. Breaking free from sexual addiction is a profound and courageous journey that requires faith, resilience, and a deep commitment to personal transformation. When sex controls your mind more than you think, it often manifests not just as a physical compulsion, but as a mental and emotional bondage that can feel impossible to escape. Yet breaking free is possible, and divine healing offers an instant, a powerful path toward liberation. Sexual addiction can hijack the mind, creating patterns of behavior that repeat despite the consequences. The mind becomes a battlefield where desire clashes with reason, and the cycle of craving, indulgence, and regret traps individuals in a relentless loop. This addiction can damage relationships, erode self-esteem, and create profound feelings of shame and isolation. The overwhelming influence sex has on the mind in such cases underscores the need for more than just willpower. It demands spiritual intervention and healing. Faith is the cornerstone of breaking free. When you cry out, speak the word Lord. You invite divine power to enter your struggle and begin the healing process. This act of faith acknowledges that human strength alone may falter, but through divine grace, the mind can be renewed and the chains of addiction can be broken. A faith brings hope where despair once ruled and instills the resilience necessary to keep moving forward. Resilience in this context means embracing the journey, including its setbacks and victories. Breaking free from sexual addiction is not a one-time event, but a daily commitment to renewal. It requires developing new habits and thought patterns that replace old, destructive ones. This transformation often involves prayer, meditation, and engaging with supportive faith communities where encouragement and accountability help sustain progress. Real-life stories illuminate the power of this journey. Consider the man who struggled for years under the control of compulsive sexual behaviors. His turning point came when he surrendered his addiction to God and sought healing through prayer and community. Over time, he rebuilt his life, finding peace in the freedom from obsession and joy in restored relationships. His story exemplifies the profound change that faith-driven resilience can bring. Similarly, a woman burdened by shame and secrecy found hope by embracing divine healing. She committed herself to daily prayer, spiritual study, and seeking mentorship within her faith community. These practices fortified her mind and spirit, enabling her to resist temptation and grow stronger. Her journey was marked not by perfection, but by persistence and the continuous renewal of faith. Breaking free also involves practical steps. Identifying triggers, setting healthy boundaries, and seeking professional help when needed are essential. Combining spiritual practices with practical strategies creates a holistic approach that nurtures mind, body, and spirit. Mindfulness, being aware of thoughts and emotions without judgment, helps interrupt automatic behaviors and cultivate greater self-control. Above all, breaking free requires grace toward oneself and others. Addiction can leave deep wounds, but healing begins when you choose compassion over condemnation. Divine healing invites forgiveness, restoration, and the hope of a new beginning. It reminds us that no one is beyond redemption and that freedom is available here and now. You are called to take that first step to speak the word of faith, to invite divine healing, and to commit to resilience in the face of struggle. With faith as your foundation and practical support as your guide, you can break free from sexual addiction and reclaim your mind, your peace, and your purpose. Spiritual growth and sexual discipline are deeply connected aspects of personal development that play a crucial role in reclaiming control over the mind, especially when sex exerts a powerful influence. When sex controls your mind more than you think, it often points to an imbalance where physical desires overshadow spiritual maturity and mental clarity. Embracing spiritual growth alongside sexual discipline offers a transformative path that renews the mind, strengthens the spirit, and cultivates lasting inner peace. Spiritual growth is a journey toward deeper self-awareness, connection with the divine, and alignment with one's higher purpose. It involves nurturing the soul through practices such as prayer, meditation, reflection, and acts of service. This growth is not merely about religious ritual, but about cultivating a heart and mind that seek truth, healing, and wholeness. When faced with the overpowering nature of sexual temptation, spiritual growth provides the foundation for resilience and clarity, reminding us that our identity is more than fleeting desires. Sexual discipline complements spiritual growth by encouraging intentional choices and boundaries around sexuality. It is the conscious practice of managing sexual thoughts, behaviors, and emotions in ways that honor one's values and foster spiritual well-being. Sexual discipline is not about repression or shame, rather, it is an empowering commitment to live in harmony with one's faith and purpose. It helps to break the cycle where sexual urges dominate the mind, replacing impulsive reactions with thoughtful responses. The connection between spiritual growth and sexual discipline becomes evident when we recognize how intertwined our physical and spiritual lives truly are. Sexuality, when unregulated, can consume mental energy and distract from spiritual pursuits. On the other hand, spiritual maturity enhances our ability to exercise self-control, guiding us to channel desires in healthy, life-affirming ways. Together, they create a balanced life where the mind is free to focus on growth, healing, and divine connection. Real-life experiences powerfully illustrate this connection. For instance, a young man overwhelmed by compulsive sexual thoughts began a journey of spiritual growth by dedicating time each day to prayer and meditation. This spiritual discipline strengthened his resolve and brought new perspectives on his struggles. Coupled with conscious efforts to set boundaries and cultivate sexual discipline, he gradually reclaimed control over his mind and found peace that had eluded him. Similarly, a woman who felt trapped by sexual temptation found healing through integrating spiritual practices with sexual discipline. She engaged in community worship, sought guidance from spiritual mentors, and committed to personal reflection. This process deepened her faith and helped her to develop practical strategies for managing her desires. Her spiritual growth made sexual discipline less about restriction and more about embracing a fuller, more purposeful life. The journey of spiritual growth and sexual discipline requires patience and persistence. It invites embracing setbacks not as failures but as lessons and opportunities for deeper faith and self-understanding. It encourages ongoing self-examination and openness to divine guidance, trusting that healing and renewal are possible through grace. Practical steps support this integration. Cultivating daily spiritual practices, developing awareness of triggers and temptations, creating accountability relationships, and setting healthy limits in relationships and media consumption. These tools nurture both the mind and spirit, making it easier to resist the overpowering influence of sexual desires. Ultimately, spiritual growth and sexual discipline lead to a liberated mind, one where sex no longer controls but serves as a healthy part of a rich, faith-driven life. This liberation opens the door to greater clarity, peace, and the ability to live with purpose and joy. You are invited to embark on this transformative journey. Through faith, discipline, and divine healing, you can renew your mind, strengthen your spirit, and reclaim control over your desires. The power to overcome is within reach, and your life can be a testament to the freedom found in spiritual growth and sexual discipline.